Welcome back to another episode of App Stories. This week's episode is brought to you by Memberful. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vitici and a couple of special guests who I will introduce in a moment.
Hello, John. We're not alone this time. It's not just me and you. We have company.
I know, and this is a big episode because it's our first actual recording since the holidays. Because
so happy New Year to you.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yes.
Thanks to the magic of time shifting, we recorded our pick 2 before Christmas and put it out on in the beginning of January. But we're back, we're recording, and we've got some timely news for everybody. But before we get to the news, I want to introduce our 2 special guests, the co-hosts of the podcast Magic Rays of Light, Sigmund Judge and Devon Dundee. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Hello.
Well, thanks for joining us today. It's very good to be talking to you. I think the last time, I have not actually met Devon in person, but I did get the chance to meet Sigmund for the very first time at WWDC, where Federico and I pulled him aside and had a little conversation. Yes. Right, Federico?
Well, you make that sound a little threatening.
I know. Well, but it might have been a little frightening for Sigmund. I don't know. I mean, have 2 guys like us pull him aside. You never know.
And we were at the company store at Apple Park. I guess the visitor center is the proper name. But yeah, so we have Sigmund and Devon on the show here today because, you may have seen the announcement on MacStories. I guess if you're listening to the Plus version of App Stories, you're listening to this a day earlier on Sunday. This announcement will be shared tomorrow. So if you can, if you're an App Stories Plus member, you want to keep it to yourself until tomorrow, that'll be a huge favor. Thank you. The Magic Rays of Light podcast, hosted by Sigmund and Devon, is joining the MacStories family of podcasts starting this week. And we are so excited to welcome Magic Rays of Light to MacStories. So for those who may not be familiar with the show, and I'll hand it off to Devon and Sigmund in a minute to talk about the show. It feels like a natural complement to the MacStories suite of podcasts.
It really does.
It's a show all about Apple TV, Apple Originals, Apple Arcade, sort of what Apple is doing in terms of entertainment. And Sigmund and Devon, bringing their knowledge and expertise in this field to sort of talk about topics related to Apple that John and I cannot possibly cover, not because we don't want to, but because we don't have the sheer amount of knowledge that these guys have when it comes to Apple TV and Apple TV Plus. And so we've been keeping an eye on the show for quite some time. And then when we met Sigmund at WWDC, the time felt right to sort of start having this conversation. And which is why we are so happy to be finally integrating Magic Rays of Light on MacStories, joining App Stories, so this very program that you're listening to, and Unwind. So we now officially have 3 MacStories podcasts. And it feels like a great first step for 2024.
Yeah, it really does. And I'm really excited about having the show on MacStories as well. I mean, I feel like Magic Rays of Light is a show that's been around for quite a while now, and it's got over 100 episodes under its belt. So, Sigmund and Devon have been committed to this show and doing a fantastic job with it from the very get-go. And it's got this similar sensibility to a lot of the things we do at MacStories in terms of really taking a thoughtful, in-depth approach to a narrow topic. And as Federico said, it's not an area that he or I really have a lot of depth of knowledge in ourselves. And so it made a lot of sense to bring Sigmund and Devon and the show over to MacStories.
Well, for the record, I just want to say, when you pulled me aside, the first thing I did after our conversation was message Devon, and we had a call, and we were both super, super excited at the prospect, and now it's becoming a reality. So happy, and it's a real privilege to be joining the MacStories family. Just a little bit of background on the podcast. So I actually started Magic Rays of Light in 2020, and I was joined by a different guest each week as we followed the latest goings on with Apple's original content and media divisions following the launch of Apple TV Plus, which I was very, very excited about from the get-go. Early guests actually included familiar voices from within the wider Apple community, alongside the likes of acting talents, including Confidence, the Nigerian cowboy from the early season of Little America. We had Critics' Choice winner Christos Fernandez of Danny Rojas' Ted Lasso fame. Later, we had a renowned game designer, John Hare of Sensible Soccer fame, and then later Sociable Soccer on Apple Arcade. The Sky is Everywhere author Jandy Nelson, Emmy Award winner and Severance composer Theodore Shapiro, SAG Award-winning actress Lauren Ambrose, BAFTA and PGA nominated documentarian Becky Reed, and many, many more. But Devon actually came on board after originally sending a voice message to the show. And before long, I actually asked him to join as a regular co-host because not only was I captivated by his passion for Apple TV and his emotional connection to the stories being told, but in addition to the stories, we actually share quite a deep interest in Apple TV from the user experience point of view. When Apple TV Plus launched, Tim Cook spoke about great stories changing the world. But with the Apple TV platform, the company has, of course, ample opportunity to improve the user experience of watching TV and the accessibility that comes with it, making sure, of course, that everyone can take part in and enjoy this new era in streaming. And that is the story, I think, that is just as important as the stories told on screen. And that is, I think, probably the reason why I think Magic Rays of Light fits in quite well. Wouldn't you agree, Devon?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We really love looking at the ways that Apple can improve the way that we watch TV, but we also really want to make sure that it's something that everyone can enjoy. And so I think that that really lines up well with the coverage that you guys do on MacStories. And I think that bringing in that Apple TV story to what you guys are doing can really, as you said, Federico, be a compliment to it.
Yeah. And once again, I am so excited about having you guys on board. And the best part is really the only thing that's changing about the show is the schedule. New episodes, I believe, will come out on Wednesdays, but nothing else is changing. Like, I truly believe in this idea of like when you wanna quote unquote acquire something or like incorporate something else that's pre-existing into your property. I think it's so silly to go in and change the formula. Like if something is obviously working, why change it? So that's why if you are subscribed to Magic Rays of Light, the RSS feed of the show should have just transitioned automatically. You shouldn't notice anything. All of the previous episodes should continue to be part of the feed. Devon and Sigmund will continue to host the show. Nothing is really changing because, they've been doing such an excellent job, but we didn't really want to touch anything. Also because, again, John and I, we cover other stuff. We talk about apps, we talk about news, sometimes rumors. But we'll leave you guys to it. And we figured, let's just have an introductory episode, have you guys on App Stories to talk about the show and introduce our listeners to this other podcast that's now part of the MacStories family that they can subscribe to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage everybody who isn't already a subscriber to give it a try. I think Magic Rays of Light is, as we said, a great fit with MacStories and really rounds out the coverage that we have on the site really, really very well. It'll be out, the new episode will be out this Wednesday. Federico and I are actually going to make a guest appearance on that, but this is like very much a guest thing. We're not becoming part of the show. We're just visiting the show to help with this transition. And on Friday, for Club MacStories members, we're going to do a special media-focused issue of MacStories Weekly. I don't want to give away exactly what's going to be going on for that issue, but we're going to kind of try to extend this all throughout the week and celebrate the Magic Rays of Light coming over to MacStories. All right, everybody. I think that we should dig into some apps because, this is App Stories after all. And I know that, you, Sigmund, and you and Devon are busy watching Apple TV Plus most of the day. if not like 12 hours a day. But I'm sure you use some apps to kind of help you in your watching and making sure that you can do this as effectively and efficiently as possible and be productive. So we thought, Federico and I thought we would talk today a little bit about some of our favorite media tracking apps. And there are a lot of these on the App Store. It's a really rich category full of a lot of really fantastic apps, many of which we have covered in the past, but I know Federico's been kind of trying out different things recently. I have too. And I'm curious to hear what you, Sigmund, and Devon have to say about this topic too. But maybe Federico, maybe you could go first with one of your picks.
I can go first, and I want to mention TV Forecast.
Okay.
So this is an app made by Big Bucket Software, which is a software company of Matt Comey. We've covered a bunch of times on the show and on MacStories before. And it's a TV tracker that recently gained support for movie tracking as well. And it syncs with Tracked.tv, which is the popular web service to sort of sync your TV show library in the cloud, doing the episodes that you watched and the ones in your queue. And I really like TV Forecast for a couple of reasons. The first one being the clean design that's very native, very simple. Sort of reminds me of Things in some ways. It's very minimal, very easy to use. It has widgets, it has shortcut actions, custom icons, all these modern sort of bells and whistles that you're used to having on a modern iOS app experience. But really the main thing for me is the clear separation when it comes to tracking TV, which is the thing I do the most. I'm not really a movie person, I'm more of a TV person myself. It separates your episodes for the shows you're following between upcoming and your progress. And that to me feels like a very distinct separation between two types of episodes. The ones that are coming out soon on a streaming service or on a TV channel, and the ones that I am actually making progress towards. Like, what am I actually watching? So, for example, last night, I saw that the final episode of For All Mankind was about to come out. But in my progress, I saw that I was stuck at episode 5. So that's that separation between what's coming up and what's actually your progress, I really like. And then there's a couple of touches, like, for example, when you go into an episode, into a show's page, you can either jump to the main show or to the specific season that you're tracking. You can view cast information, you can watch trailers, you can now see where you can actually stream stuff.
Right.
There's episode descriptions, like there's a lot of details that round out the experience of using TV Forecast. So that's why I've tried a bunch of TV trackers over the years, and eventually I always go back to TV Forecast.
Yeah, it's a really great app, and I've got a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for it because it's one of the early apps that I covered at MacStories. It's been around for a very long time, and design has really always been the hallmark of this app. And most recently, when I last reviewed it on MacStories, it was because movies have been added. So the app has 3 tabs. It's got a TV tab, a movie tab, and a search tab for discovering new things. And the movies section is very similarly set up to what Federico described with TV shows between upcoming and out now. And so it has some of the similar things, like where can you stream these movies, what various services they're on. One of the things I also like about the TV portion of the app that Federico didn't mention is that it's very easy to mark multiple episodes as watched or a whole season all at once. If, for instance, you maybe fall behind in doing that, it's very easy to kind of manage that without having to just tap a bunch of buttons. Really, really great app. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Memberful. Memberful is best-in-class membership software used by the web's biggest creators, publishers, and media companies. If you're building a membership website for a client, Memberful handles all of the hard stuff so you can complete your builds quickly and your clients can focus on creating content while earning revenue with ease. Memberful protects members-only content and allows site owners to select which subscribers get access to protected areas of your website using server-side content protection. It seamlessly integrates with WordPress and features a host of shortcodes and built-in WordPress functions so you can insert dynamic links and integrate memberful data with your WordPress theme. Plus, Memberful has built-in connections to popular tools like MailChimp, Discord, and Google Analytics, so site owners can reach and monetize their existing audience without rebuilding their entire tech stack. With Memberful, your clients always have full control and ownership of their audience and their brand. The software also maintains GraphQL, API, webhooks, and OAuth single sign-on to make integrating even easier. Memberful has everything your client will need to run a membership program, including a streamlined and powerful checkout, an easy-to-use member portal, transactional emails, and member management dashboard. Memberful's analytics also give your clients an easy-to-use, in-depth view of what's working, what's not, and where to double down. Help your clients monetize their passion today. Get started for free today at memberful.com/appstories. That's memberful.com/appstories. Our thanks to Memberful for their support of the show. Devon, do you have an app you want to talk about?
Well, I hope you won't think I'm cheating by picking this app, John. But for me, the most important media tracking app that I use is actually Apple's TV app.
Okay.
Huh.
And that's one that we talk about a lot on Magic Rays of Light. Of course, we have a lot of thoughts on what we'd like to see come to the TV app in the future. But as it is now, it really is the place I go first to see what I'm going to watch next. It has the advantage that it integrates with most of the other streaming services. And so you don't have to manually track what you're watching. It just automatically knows where you're at and can help you pick up if you switch devices or if you have to take a break and come back later. It's just ready to go with you right there. The thing that is missing that I do find I need another app for is the ability to kind of organize things. You don't have options for sorting or like excluding future releases is something I would love to be able to do to have them reappear once a title that's coming out in a couple months comes out. But for what it does, the TV app, especially the Up Next queue, really is my go-to place to start watching TV. And it's the most important place where I keep track of my media.
Ah, cool. That's really interesting to me because it's like, for me, the TV app is very much a place that I go and I turn it on, I kind of scroll through whatever happens to be there. I find something and I press go. I don't spend a lot of time in the TV app, but I can see that. I mean, that it's certainly got the functionality that you need to be able to do that sort of thing. So that's a cool idea. Sigmund, how about you?
I mean, I'm very much the same as Devon. Up until probably recently, every film that I saw a trailer or was able to be added to my Up Next queue, I would do, even if it was something I was going to see at the cinema. But the tracking apps that I use are, first off, SQL. And the main reason for this is, first off, I really like the design of SQL on iPhone. Of course, it's on iPad and Mac as well. But what I love about SQL is, for us, we get screeners from time to time so that we can be ahead. And before we know it, all of the episodes are there, ready to go, which is really, really helpful. And this is an app that I wouldn't necessarily call a tracking app, but has been really, really helpful in covering some of the shortfalls of the TV app and then going beyond that. And that is Marcus Tanaka's Play, which I know both yourself and Federico are big fans of. Devon and I love this app, and I don't know where we'd be without it, to be honest with you. It allows for you to be able to not only integrate content from the TV app, but from outside of the TV app's walls, including Netflix and YouTube. And you're able to do so much, including subscribing to a YouTube feed directly from the app. So that is honestly probably the app that really has changed the experience for me when it comes to video. Devon is probably the person that pushed this app onto me initially, because he's been using it for since the beginning, I think.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Marcos and his work. We actually had him on the show during WWDC a couple years ago to talk about his development process. Play has a special place in my heart because it's on the Apple TV. And one tip, if you're a Play user, you can actually put the app on your top screen of your Apple TV home screen, and it'll show your titles on that top bar without even having to open the Play app. And so you can launch into your YouTube videos without even having to open the app itself, which is very cool. I mostly use it for YouTube. It's very cool that it has the ability to add titles from other streaming services as well and kind of be a one-stop solution for everything. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Play.
Yeah, I think that's an important point about Play because I don't think maybe everyone knows that it works with things other than YouTube. I mean, I use it really exclusively for YouTube, and the new feature where you can subscribe to a channel and then periodically go in and basically look at an inbox that shows all of the new videos from the channels you subscribe to, and then pick and choose very quickly which ones you want to save for later is just, it's completely changed the way that I use YouTube. It's actually made me use YouTube an awful lot more.
Yeah, that's a feature that I also use a lot, and I basically only open the YouTube app for actually watching the videos and occasionally for search, but like Play provides such a better inbox, I think, if you just want to see videos from your favorite channels, which is a feature that you can get in the YouTube app, but also it takes way too many taps, I think, to sort of use the YouTube app, which is also like this non-native design, and it's got that Google design that I always find so awkward on iOS. So yeah, I can also vouch for the Play integration for channels.
Yeah, I think it's worth talking about SQL a little bit more too, Federico, because this app, Romain, who is the developer of the app, he's a Club MacStories member, and we've actually had his beta in there, and he's gotten a lot of feedback from members while he's been developing it. But his 2.0, which came out in 2023, was our best new app of 2023 winner for the MacStories Selects Awards. And it goes well beyond video because it'll allow you to track both TV shows and movies, but it also works with video games and books. So it's really a great solution for anybody who wants to kind of consolidate their media consumption and tracking all in one place.
We had Roman on Magic Rays of Light not that long ago, and I think the one thing that all of these apps are looking for in the future is a deeper integration with the TV app, much like, everything is kind of opened up for Apple Music. It would be lovely to see that flexibility come to the TV app as well. I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, Federico.
I feel like the one thing that brought to mind is I kind of wonder if maybe there should be sort of like, how for Apple Music there are APIs for developers to integrate with. There are different frameworks that developers can use. Like if you want, you can even make a third-party Apple Music client. And sometimes I kind of wonder if maybe that could be something that we could see eventually for in terms of integration with Apple TV Plus for developers. I'm not saying that obviously Apple wants to give away control of the playback experience, but something like to be able to retrieve more easily metadata for Apple TV shows or cast information, like to make basically what I'm imagining is like, imagine if developers could make native like viewers for Apple TV Plus. So like something to browse. Like I'm thinking of Casey List and Call Sheet, for example. And he had to use what's the name of the API, the movie database or something, like a combination of things, and IMDb, I guess. But imagine if Apple provided its own database and sort of, allow developers to go more in depth in terms of the things you can discover. And of course, you will still have to watch content and have a subscription and use the Apple app. But for this sort of additional information, I think it'll be interesting to have a proper technology down the road.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And I think another, a corollary to this is I would like to see Apple open up shortcuts integration for its various media properties. Because as I know, Federico and I have talked about this in the context of music an awful lot, because we've still got the iTunes search API in Shortcuts, which is much more limited than Music Kit, which is available for developers who are making competing music playback apps. And it would be nice to see more of that kind of metadata available in an automation setup as well for things like TV Plus.
I've actually been doing this kind of thing through some integration with Home Assistant recently. Whereas I've been working also alongside Devon on turning those into shortcuts as well. But it's all manual work. And so my hope is that also, something like that technology coming in the future could then open up and make the TV experience more accessible. If you could imagine just using the TV app, for example, clicking on the tile of what you want, and there being an AirPlay option right there and then, and it just plays on your TV or your local Apple TV. Something like that would be fantastic. But until then, there are ways, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Another app that I think we should talk about today is Sofa, because Sean Hickman's app allows you, it's one of the most flexible media tracker apps I think that's out there. And to me, what kind of sets it apart from some of the other ones is the fact that it's so quick to allow you to grab something and just save it quickly and organize it later. It's got this concept of the pile where you do a quick search, you find what you're looking for. The app can organize music and books and movies and podcasts and all sorts of different things. But you throw it onto the pile, and then you can create smart lists. You can create all sorts of different ways you want to consume that media that makes sense to you in the way that you spend your time watching or listening to these things. And then it's also got a concept of the shelf, which is a little bit like an up next queue. You can use it to put really just about anything that you can collect in the app in that spot and have it ready so that, maybe you've got 100 different things in Sofa lined up and ready to go between music, podcasts, movies, music, and everything else. But you only have 5 or 6 things that realistically you're going to get to in the next week or two. So you throw them up on the shelf and they're ready to go very quickly. So you don't have to have that kind of what do I watch now decision-making process when you sit down to relax. You can just go right into your shelf and from there decide what you're going to watch next.
Yeah, and what I think Sofa also does very, very, very nice is the customization options.
Right.
And the developer, Sean, has done such an incredible job sort of making that a part of the experience, like all the different themes that you can unlock for Sofa, all the seasonal themes and there are themes for different times of the year or different sort of ideas or concepts. And that is also reflected in the custom icons that you can use for Sofa. I think the personalization of it's like putting together your own little library, your own little collection of media. I think that's done so nice, compared to these other apps that have a more sort of neutral approach in terms of tracking media and your collection of stuff. It's sort of reminiscent in a way of, long-time Mac users will remember, but something like Delicious Library, for example, from back in the day, and you had your little wooden shelves and you could organize your DVD collection, for example, in Delicious Library too. That's not something that I would argue most people don't do anymore.
And you could scan barcodes. You could buy yourself a barcode reader and
scan barcodes. And at some point you could do it with your phone, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Kind of in the later years of that app, for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I want to ask both Devon and Sigmund, do you, and I guess this specifically about TV, but for all other kinds of media as well, do you still buy physical media these days?
I've fallen off the physical media purchasing train. I think streaming really did that in for me. If there's a title that I really love, I'll buy a digital copy of it so that I have it in my library at least. But I honestly can't remember the last time I bought a physical film or TV show, unfortunately.
I had a problem with physical media in the sense of I would literally buy every disc. It didn't matter where it was from. It had to have that special feature. And then because I was buying so much, the special feature that I had to get that import for, I never ended up getting round to watching. And so I actually got rid of all of my physical media, went fully digital, fully in on the TV app. One issue that I'm having at the moment, though, is there are a number of films, for example, that I would love to own legally that just aren't available for streaming. You know, you can't buy a digital copy of, but they'll have a physical release through Criterion, for example. And so being a completist, I have found that I am tempted to get some Blu-rays, some 4K Blu-rays. But also I've been buying the soundtracks to Apple original films and series on vinyl recently, even though up until this moment in time, I don't have a record player.
Wow, interesting. You know, I think I'm a little bit like Devon. I don't buy physical media anymore. I do occasionally buy a movie or a TV show just to have them if it's a favorite. I am not the kind of person who rewatches things very often, so that's fairly limited for me. Although lately I have started to feel the tug of Blu-rays for the first time. I have never owned a Blu-ray player other than a game console that will play Blu-rays. And I do have a PS5 connected to my OLED TV. And James Cameron just released a special edition of The Abyss on Blu-ray and 4K that I'm really dying to see. And I'd like to own that at some point and watch it on my PS5, I think.
Yeah, I bought speaking of James Cameron, I bought the Blu-ray remastered version of Titanic.
Yeah, I saw that came out recently.
My plan is also to watch it on the PS5 because that's the only Blu-ray playback device that I own. I never had a Blu-ray player in my life. I always had a PS4 and a PS5. But yeah, I guess I don't buy physical media anymore. There are some exceptions here and there, like when it comes to TV, like this remastered edition. I also have the remastered edition of The Lord of the Rings. They came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I actually bought that
every once in a while I make an exception. The one area where I don't make an exception is video games. I still like to buy my video games with a physical copy whenever possible, just because I like even though they occupy space in my house, I like to see the little boxes there with the artwork and, you know, just as a physical reminder of my collection. I don't know. It's a weird thing, probably. Also, it helps that I have a friend who owns a video game store and it gives me copies a couple of days before they actually, you know, come out. So that's also part of the reason why.
It's also smart given Nintendo's track record with online, you know, digital media sometimes and bringing things forward to future consoles. I think that it's nice to have the physical copies sometimes. But I will say, that said, other than when the Switch first came out, I haven't bought any physical games since that first handful of games that came out at launch.
I have a question for you both, actually, when it comes to video games. Are you into special editions? Because there are some crazy special editions out there. Or do you like everything to be the same spine, the same size? How kind of finicky are you when it comes to that?
Kind of, especially for video games. Yeah, I like to group them by color, by section, and by time. Yeah, so I guess I am finicky. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you probably are. And you've bought some special editions in the past, I know, of various games. I generally don't. I usually just get the standard. Sometimes I'll get some sort of deluxe version for some sort of bonus material of some kind. But for the most part, I stick with the kind of the standard copies, and more often than not, it's digital. Speaking of video games, I think we ought to mention a couple of video game trackers. And I know, Federico, you've been using the app Game Track again, which is one of my favorites. It's always been, there's this push and pull, I think, with media apps that I find very interesting, where you can use a generalist app, kind of like Sofa or Sequel that we talked about before, or you can go very specific for a specific kind of media, which has its advantages because it can have some features that are specialized to that particular kind of content. And GameTrack is very much one of those kind of apps.
Yeah, GameTrack is excellent because it comes with so many different filtering options. A big part of the reason why I went back to using GameTrack is the ability to use multiple filters together to create custom views. And so I was able to import my backlog, which is huge because way too many great games came out in 2023. And I was able to create these custom views that sort of create multiple subsets of games. So for example, you can combine filters like released before 2024 and is in progress to sort of have a view of all the older video games that you still have in your backlog. And you can mix and match these conditions. It's sort of like creating a saved search in Apple Mail or Finder on the desktop. And you can create these custom views that let you manage your collection and your library more easily. As of a couple of days ago, GameTrack was updated with support for recommendations. So when you open a games page, you will see what other players enjoyed. So for example, you open Metroid Prime Remastered and you will see that players also enjoyed Metroid Dread and Metroid Fusion. Sure enough, they did. But also, if you keep rating your own games, the app will learn from you and it'll recommend more games that you should like based on your own ratings. So
that's nice.
Yeah, that's very nice. Plus, it's very nicely designed, and there's a subscription if you want to unlock more functionalities and more customizations. So yeah, it's the kind of app that lets you both spend some time tweaking things and making sections, organizing, which is the sort of thing that I like. But also you can just browse around and discover games, see what's coming up, add a bunch of things to your library. You don't have to be a power user of GameTrack to enjoy it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that app a lot too. I want to mention really quickly Switch Buddy, because this is an app that started out as kind of a utility for quickly getting your screenshots off of a Nintendo Switch and onto your iPhone. But it's grown into something a lot more because it allows you to browse the various games that are available on Nintendo Switch, as well as track deals, read reviews of games from leading publications that are integrated with the app, and there's a subscription too to do even more than that. So it's become kind of a one-stop shop for fans of the Nintendo Switch if you're looking for ways both to track but also to kind of discover new games as well. Devon and Sigmund, do you have any other apps you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I had one other TV and film tracking app I wanted to recommend. It's called Movie Tracker by Simone Montalto. I actually came across this one in the club Discord, and it kind of hits on some of the themes that we were talking about with the other apps. The thing that I really like it for is its custom spaces, which let you organize what you're watching into different groups. And one problem I run into when I'm watching TV and films is on Magic Rays of Light, we like to share recommendations each week of things that we're enjoying. But I have trouble remembering what I've watched for whatever reason. And so I use this app to record what I've watched. And so when it's time to pick a recommendation for the week, I can go back and see everything I've watched that week and point out something that's stuck with me and that I want to share. It's really well designed. It's very native looking. It almost has kind of that Reminders feel that several apps kind of adopted when Reminders was redesigned. It's got kind of that vibe to it, which I appreciate, and some really great widgets. So it's another awesome option within that field, which just an abundance of riches when it comes to media tracking apps.
That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there for today, but I want to once again welcome both of you, Sigmund and Devon, and your show, Magic Rays of Light, to the MacStories family, and encourage everybody to go out right now, find your podcast app, and go subscribe to Magic Rays of Light. You're gonna be happy that you did, because it's a fantastic show, and there's a great new episode coming up on Wednesday. Anything from you, Federico?
No, that should be it for this week's show. And I want to thank again Devon and Sigmund for joining us both today and in general on MacStories. So we are. I know I'm a subscriber, so I'm looking forward to the next episode of Magic Rays of Light. This time you'll find it on MacStories, which is a very nice thing to say to begin 2024.
It very much is. All right. And I want to thank our sponsor for this week's episode. That's Memberful. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. And you can even find Sigmund and Devon there too with Magic Rays of Light. We're on Mastodon. Just go to Viticci.MacStories.net and JohnVorhees.MacStories.net. We're on Threads and Instagram too, where Federico is at Viticci and I'm at John Voorhees. Sigmund, where can people find you on Mastodon and anywhere else you want to talk about?
Mastodon's a bit of a complicated one, but for everywhere else, at Sig Judge, Threads, X, Instagram, everywhere.
Excellent. How about you, Devon?
There are not a lot of people in the world named Devon Dundee, so if you search for me, wherever, I'll be there. Mastodon, Threads, and Instagram. I'm just under Devon Dundee.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us again today, and we will be listening in on Wednesday for the next episode of Magic Rays of Light. Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao, John.
Bye, John. Thank you.